The career of Josef Kramer, one of the most notorious Nazi guards, began in 1934 as a guard at the Dachau concentration camp. In April 1941, he was appointed commandant of the Natzweiler-Struthof concentration camp. In this camp, he personally executed more than 80 men and women, whose bodies were subsequently transferred to the Anatomical Institute of the University of Strasbourg to replenish the collection of skeletons. He received the ominous nickname, the Beast of Belsen. That's the kind of person we'll talk about today. Josef Kramer is one of the most brutal Nazi criminals responsible for the deaths of thousands of concentration camp prisoners. Despite this, he himself, like many other Nazis, denied his involvement in the massacres, justifying himself by saying that he was only doing his job with discipline. Kramer was born in 1906 in Munich into a Catholic family. In 1931, he joined the NSDAP. In the following year, became a member of the SS. Before joining the concentration camp system, he worked for the tax inspectorate and the civil registry office in Augsburg. In 1934, Kramer began serving in death camps, which became his only career for many years. He carried out his work with fanatical zeal, advancing through the ranks thanks to impeccable diligence. His first camp was Dachau, where he worked as a security guard, followed by Sachsenhausen and Mauthausen, where Kramer held senior positions. In 1940, he became an assistant to Rudolf Hesse, the commandant of Auschwitz, and took an active part in improving the mechanisms of mass extermination. In April 1941, Josef Kramer was appointed commandant of the Natzweiler-Struthof concentration camp, located 50 kilometers from Strasbourg. It was here that he displayed his extreme cruelty and ruthlessness. At the post-war tribunal, Kramer confessed that in August 1943, he personally participated in the execution of 80 people held in the camp. At the request of Dr. August Hirsch, known for his inhumane medical experiments, he prepared a deadly gas and sprayed it in a special cell, bringing prisoners there under the pretext of disinfection. Kramer watched their painful deaths in cold blood, after which he sent the bodies to the University of Strasbourg for use in Hirsch's experiments. During interrogations after the war, Kramer claimed that he was only following orders and did not consider what he had done a crime. This phrase became a typical excuse for Nazi criminals, but it did not absolve him of responsibility. In May 1944, Kramer was appointed head of the Auschwitz-Birkenau camp, the most terrible center of mass extermination. At the trial, he admitted that he had supervised the operation of the gas chambers through which thousands of victims had passed, but again denied his personal involvement in the selection of people sent to their deaths, citing orders from senior management. During his administration, on October 7, 1944, an uprising took place in the Birkenau camp. The prisoners from the Sonderkommando, having learned that they too would soon be executed, tried to rebel. They blew up one of the crematoriums and killed several guards. However, the uprising was quickly suppressed and its participants were brutally executed. On December 2, 1944, Josef Kramer took up the post of commandant of the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. At the same time, Irma Grace, nicknamed the Blonde Devil for her boundless cruelty, was transferred from Auschwitz to the camp. Grace, who according to some reports was having an affair with Kramer, became known as a ruthless sadist. She subjected prisoners to painful and fatal tortures, cruelly abused prisoners, poisoned them with hungry dogs, and beat them with a whip. Subsequently, she, like Kramer, was sentenced to capital punishment. The concentration camp, which Kramer took over, was in disastrous condition. When the camp was created, it was planned as a place of detention for wealthy prisoners, for whose release the Nazis expected to receive a cash ransom or exchange them for captured German soldiers. However, this scheme practically did not function, and soon Bergen-Belsen turned into another death camp. During the final period of the war, the camp was replenished weekly with new prisoners, who were forcibly transferred here from Auschwitz and other concentration camps. From December 1944 to March 1945, about 45,000 people were transported to Bergen-Belsen. The excessive number of prisoners led to mass starvation and the spread of disease, and Kramer aggravated the situation by adding regular beatings and torture, constant threats of machine gun fire, or inciting dogs. Kramer's arrival in Bergen-Belsen coincided with the outbreak of the typhus epidemic, which reached its peak in February 1945. Appalling unsanitary conditions led to the deaths of thousands of prisoners every day. During this period, 15-year-old Anne Frank, the creator of the world-famous diary, was among the prisoners of the camp, telling about life in the Amsterdam shelter, where her family was hiding from Nazi persecution. According to the testimony of one of the surviving prisoners, Anna and her sister Margot were kept in a polluted tent with an unbearable stench. It was unbearably hot inside, probably because of the huge number of people who were there, says a former prisoner of Bergen-Belsen. Soon it started to rain, and water penetrated to us through numerous holes. My sister and I huddled together under the blankets, as did Anna and Margot. They looked like dying birds. It was painful to see them in such a state. According to reports, both sisters died of typhus in March 1945. Realizing that the liberation of the camp by Allied forces was approaching, Kramer attempted to hide the traces of the atrocities committed. By his order, 2,000 exhausted prisoners, who were on the verge of life and death, were forced to dig graves for unburied bodies. However, even these measures proved insufficient. The territory of Bergen-Belsen was dotted with people. Many prisoners did not live to be released for only a few days or even hours. Among them was the Czech artist Josef Kramer, the brother of the famous writer Karel Čapek. On April 11, 1945, Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler promised to hand over the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp to the Allied forces without armed resistance. Most SS officers were allowed to leave the camp, but Kramer, along with a group of people loyal to him, decided to voluntarily stay on the territory, ostensibly to maintain order. On April 15, British military units entered Bergen-Belsen. According to the memoirs of Lieutenant General Mervyn Gonen, the discovered prisoners were in extremely serious physical condition, barely able to stand on their feet. The degree of exhaustion was so critical, Gonen noted in his notes, that it was often impossible to determine the sex of the prisoners. There were often cases when the bodies of the dead, presumably lying for several days or weeks, were next to still living people on the same bunks. Josef Kramer was arrested and taken into custody. On September 17, 1945, the trial of him and 44 other officials who served in the Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen concentration camps began in the city of Lüneburg. The trial lasted 54 days. Kramer, who received the nickname the Beast of Belsen, denied his involvement in the murders of prisoners and other crimes, but his guilt was irrefutably proved by the testimony and documentary materials provided. As a result of the trial, conducted on the basis of the provisions on the trials of war criminals, he was found guilty of war crimes and sentenced to death by hanging. The sentence was carried out on December 13, 1945, in the Hameln prison. Historical sources mention information that Josef Kramer, like many other leaders and guards of concentration camps, may have kept a personal diary where he allegedly recorded his cruel actions against prisoners. Nevertheless, despite numerous attempts to find him, his diary entries remained undiscovered, taking with them potential evidence of crimes against humanity he had committed.